Hello, everybody. Larry Young here again with another segment of Older Man Living Life with Purity. And as promised, I've got Alex Fiato back in the studio today. Say hello, Alex.
Well, thank you for having me, Larry.
Oh, glad to have you back. We got a lot to talk about today. During my last podcast, I talked a little bit more about suicidal empathy and how it's working against people in the West to actually undermine and to bring down Western civilization. And this is not what the intent of the people who are trying to be empathetic with people is, but the end result is that they drive themselves so far into oblivion that they basically destroy themselves. And I was telling Alex before we started today about the old story about the giving tree, who had this child who, I guess, I don't know the actual story, but started out the child wanted to play in the leaves, and the tree says, "Oh, take my leaves and play in them," and all like this. And then the child needed something for the fruit and things like that. Take my fruit, eat it. I need a fire, burn the limbs and stuff like that. I need a house. Okay, take my trunk and make the boards to build your home. And then finally the child is old and gray and tired and goes back to his safe spot at this tree. And the tree says, "Sit on my stump, and take rest with me. It's all I've got left." And basically the tree gave of itself so much that there wasn't anything left. And eventually that stump was going to deteriorate and be gone as well, as the child would, is dying, the old man now. So it's an abridged version of what suicidal empathy does and its effect on folks. But what the folks in the East, the communists and the Islamists, have determined to do years ago, this is all set about. We're going to go back over the books and the relatable documentation that goes into all this. We're talking about all these books we have here and all these different references that we brought before you over the last couple of years, and how it's all sort of come to the same central point, from different sources, different kinds of viewpoints of the world and things that have happened, but how it all comes down to this distilled moment that we're in right now, which is, for lack of a better word, in God's order of nature, and with our previous understandings of how God and nature work together, that we're kind of in a state of just total diabolical confusion.
Absolutely.
And this was prophesied. So I know you were talking earlier about some of the things that came out of like Garabandal and other topical things. We had the Mark Taylor things. We had so many other things. So
we're going to touch on a lot of these different things. And would you,
the suicidal empathy?
Yeah, this guy put together, and I'm looking forward to reading this book. Larry came across it. Put together very, very clearly what's going on in terms of using something that should be virtuous and good and having it distort itself into something that's catastrophic. Right. And he has a definition. I've asked Larry historically to read it, and if he would read it again for our reviewing people.
Well, I'm going to start off with this book, Suicidal Empathy, is by Gad Saad, a intellectual. I think he's a guy who wrote The Parasitic Mind. It was a bestseller. But this is Suicidal Empathy, and he's talking about how people are being so giving and so understanding and trying to be so virtuous in their empathy and compassion that it's basically killing themselves, and it's coming at their own expense. So the subtitle of this is Suicidal Empathy, Dying to be Kind. And on the front, he has a sheep carrying a placard that says, "Free the wolves." So this is kind of what's going on, that people want, right, they want, and wolves naturally eat sheep. So they're basically free the people that are looking to kill us and take us down, because that's a good thing to do. That's what Jesus would do. And I don't believe that's what Jesus would do. Not. And so in his prologue, Gad Saad writes, "Suicidal empathy is a tragic manifestation at the civilization level." So it's all encompassing. It's not about just an individual here, an individual there, but it's about all of society and the culture that's going on, which makes up your civilization. So it's a tragic manifestation at the civilization level of the well-known proverb, "The road to hell is paved with good intentions." So it may have been your intention to do good, but the end result is that bad or defeating types of manners or behaviors came out of that. And this is kind of the destruction, actually, of what do I say, God's nature and God's plan and how God, put us here, to do certain things and to act in a certain corresponding way with our nature.
What's your, interrupt you for a minute, but where Lord had said, your good deeds are like rags. What did he mean by that? Does it have something to do with this? Like he said, no, our good deeds, and humanly wanting to have good deeds, are like rags. Did he mean like your good deeds can be distorted?
Well, sure. Everything, a good deed, it wasn't taken in the way I meant it because the receiver wasn't in tune with your way of thinking. We were talking about this before we started. We know, you and I agree, and most of our viewers probably agree, that the Judeo-Christian ethic is grounded in our godliness, Jesus' teachings, and the nature around us.
Old Scripture and New Scripture.
Right.
So we know that we're
the truth, the wisdom.
They may not know that.
Right. But because a lot of people out in the world have become part of the civilization and these good intentions, and so it's gotten warped because people pulling this way, pulling that way. You're not doing it right. We get that a lot of times when people say, you're not doing it right.
So our Lord is basically saying you may have good intentions, but by the time the world distorts it, and perhaps we even mismanage it, it's like rags. It really doesn't have any effect in terms of...
Did Adam and Eve have good intentions?
When they were eating from the tree?
Well, they wanted to have the tree of knowledge.
Right.
They wanted to be like God and having it. Was that good intentions or was that self-serving?
Self-serving.
So... But this is where a lot of people think that they're doing something of good intentions.
Right.
But what they're ending up doing is something that's self-serving, goes against nature, and God says, no, that wasn't what I was saying.
Right.
Okay, so what I need to do is I need to stop that. And so God has to, through nature, offer some sort of chastisement and redirection of what it is that we go through.
Same old story, huh?
Yeah.
With humanity.
Yeah.
We don't get it.
Yeah, worked before, worked again. Everyone always thinks, well, God rewards me, God punishes. No, God deals in consequences through nature and how you react to it and how you deal with that. The American Indians realize this, that if you treat the land badly, bad things will happen, because they saw nature and the Great Spirit all intertwined.
Yeah, they even knew how to cure polio with roots and stuff. So they had a clear indication of the medicinal effects of nature if you used it properly. It's so.
Well, the Indians knew about roots and things like that, and that's how a lot of our medicine came about, was just studying the Aboriginals, the native peoples in every area who would know what was there, and that was a lot of what like Darwin and those guys were doing, was going around trying to find and pick the brains of the locals. What does this do? How do you use that? What is this good for?
Yeah.
Types of things. So, but the suicidal empathy, I'll try to dig up the actual definition he had in here. Maybe he's got one on the back here. But it's just, suicidal empathy is basically like compassion gone wild and misdirected and used by people with different agendas to try to promote what they feel is the best thing. So with the woke arguments and things like that, and how woke has taken over the churches. And if you're not woke, then you're not being a good Catholic or Christian. A lot of the preachers are trying to tell us, the Vatican's trying to tell us right now. And this is why we've got this conflict that's so pervasive right now, with people leaving and devaluing their relationship with the Catholic Church and churches in general, is because they want to be more kind and more virtuous. They feel that is going to get them this tree of knowledge moment like Adam and Eve were going for, to have a fast track to these kinds of things. But what it really takes is a lifetime of understanding and commitment to God and His nature to really earn that spot and understand and to develop wisdom.
That's right. Not to propose the distortion of nature, and somehow being kind to that is virtuous. It's not. It's evil.
Mm-hmm. And this is where the distortion has come in, but it's become so intoxicating to people. You know, the new moment, the new flag, the new emblem, the new nose ring type of thing. I talked in the last podcast is that, you know, these nose rings and why young people are getting them and people in general get them.
Why is that?
Well, it's a symbol to each other, but it also becomes, I think, in the way, a form of an idol in their lives.
I think you're right.
And how they think about themselves and how they raise themselves up. I'm more special
I think
because
you're right,
I'm willing
Larry.
to take this. This becomes an idol that you need to bend down and understand of my choice and how empowering I am in this moment.
Yeah, I gave a beautiful cross to a friend. In fact, I gave two, one gold and one silver, which they never, and this is where he talks about the nose ring, never wear them, right? So it's like a waste of time and money. But the person shows up with a nose ring, and I'm thinking, you know,
Your
exactly what you said. It's
your
like,
cross
you know,
was
this
popular.
is, here I am, you know what I mean? I got shit in my nose, and I don't care if you have a nose ring, but I gave you a beautiful cross.
But why the nose ring? And that mother said, what was the choice? What was the alternative? My mother is in the nursing home, 100 years old. And a lot of her caregivers, these hospice folks, when she was first signed up for hospice, the people they sent out, a man and a woman, both had these nose rings. And I think they were both, I think she was a lesbian. I think he was gay. I mean, it's pretty kind of obvious that they weren't a couple. They weren't.
So who was he say, lesbian?
The one woman, I believe, was a lesbian.
What part of Lebanon was she from?
I don't know, but probably the northern part.
So I'm sorry.
I understand, but it was part of their culture inside this medical service area, this hospice program, that the people who are in it, I mean, charitable people and all like that, but they've got a different thinking about the world, and they're trying to deal with my mother, who's 100 years old, and trying to make her kind of understand. And all she could do is look at these people with these nose rings, and she's looking at the one woman. She says, I got a question for you. What's the deal with the nose ring? Jesus. You know, what is this all about? And the woman says, well, it's a choice.
Right.
And my mother says, well, what was the option?
Yeah, that's your mother. That's her, right.
You know, why a nose ring if it was a choice? What was the alternative? And the woman was like,
yeah,
she had nothing to say.
Yeah.
But she thought that my mother was being kind of ill-tempered about things. And that my mom was just saying.
She really wanted to know what the other choice was.
Explain to me.
What earrings, or was it a hand ring? Or
I'm about ready to commit my health and wealth and everything to you.
To you, right.
And I want to understand what it is I'm dealing with. I deserve at least a fair answer rather than it's a choice. Deal with it, old woman. It's my choice.
She knows what she's looking at. It's a subtle rebellion. It's a kind of self-ingratiating yourself. This is who I am. It's a choice.
Yeah.
Well, having a nose ring is not an accomplishment. It's not. You haven't gained anything. You haven't really done any hard work. You just poke through your nose and put a ring in there.
And I don't care about the nose ring in particular. It's just why the nose ring. Why
See, my question was why the nose ring and not the cross? You accepted the gifts. You should have. You know what?
That's a fair question.
Better off saying, you know something. Keep the crosses. I'm not going to wear them. Hey, honesty. Thank you. Put the ring in. Nose ring in.
Well, the understanding needs to come is why is this a symbol for you and a part of your personage?
That's right.
At this point,
And
to explain, why is this going on? Please explain to me. Use your words.
Yeah.
And then hopefully your actions will mirror that. But there's this mania that's been going on. And I think it all started with the tattoos. That there was this big push for tattoos.
Sure. Yeah.
All of a sudden, why did tattoos become this emblem of authority and change and virtue in the world? And how that became. Well, okay, I could see it. It's kind of cool, and people want to do it. But then it got
selected certain things,
and then it got to be distorting.
Right.
And then where it starts taking over the whole neck. And I know these are choices, but like my mother asked, what was the option? What was so wrong with the way you were made that you needed to distort all this? Right. I understand. It's not like fashion that can change. Once you died yourself, it's pretty much of a
Yeah,
commitment.
I don't think you're right. Yeah.
But and if people want to do that, fine, go for
Well,
it. But I just want to understand.
To me, if it's a signature thing that is meaningful to you,
Mm-hmm.
doesn't overwhelm, like your body completely, okay, that's fine. You want to, present something about your
Yeah.
life, but if it's just rampant,
And it loses meaning if it starts getting polluted with other
Yeah, you don't
symbols
know what
around
you're
it.
talking about,
You
right.
don't know what's going on.
yeah,
And so
It's-
it loses its value in that, and they don't realize that because it's chasing after more and more hits of this dopamine that they get with these things. And so another tattoo is what they need to make them feel like they're
somebody.
right. I would submit that this is an unhealthy response to a problem or an affliction or a fetish that's going on in the world right now. Fetishes come and go. Okay, and these things are not wise. Wisdom comes from, it doesn't happen to you immediately. Wisdom comes with time.
Yeah, you had some real
experience.
interesting comments on wisdom, and so I did a little bit because we have a book called Wisdom, the Woman by Jim Carrico, which is about to produce a third addendum. It's an excellent book. It's a mystical city of God, only a condensed version. But I looked up wisdom. I said, what does wisdom mean? And you touched on this in your last podcast. It's the ability to make a sound judgment and decisions by effectively applying knowledge. This is out of Webster's or something. By applying knowledge, experience, and insight. It understands what is true, right, and lasting to navigate life's challenges.
Yeah, what are life's truths? What are things that are constants? And what are things that are fluid? Fetishes are fluid.
Right.
Wisdom and the things that go with it. Wisdom studies and understands the things that are constant, that go from one generation to the next, that don't change.
That's right.
And nature doesn't change. People's perceptions, based on their fetishes, changes their perception of what
Right.
nature is. And this is where the moment of the Adam and Eve moment and the tree of wisdom comes in, because people think they're going to change nature. And that's why they think that they can change their sexual
Yeah, the greatest.
go from a
hoax.
man to a woman. Like you were talking about, they asked the tribal people about men having babies, and they just, what did they do?
Well, the teeth are missing. They got spears, and they looked at Western, idea of a man can have a baby, and they started laughing. And so I said to Larry, "This is high IQ, isn't it?" He goes, "Oh yeah, because they're taking the wisdom, they're taking the knowledge, the experience. They know that a man can't have a woman,
Right.
or can't
They
have
can't
a
have
baby."
right. Yeah,
So-
but this is how
It's the same thing with this integration. This is a prayer that the Catholics are pushing, Muslim, Jewish, Christian, prayer for peace. I have a problem with the Judeo. I mean, the basis of our religion is old scripture.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a problem with the cross. Of course, the Messiah comes from the Jewish.
It's
all
an extension.
An extension.
It's a
But-
furtherance.
But this Blessed Mother says is orchestrated by Lucifer.
So
this-
why is it on the Catholic Church distributed prayer card?
Because, if you want to read the prayer, it says, understanding that puts end to strife is the mercy that quenches hatred and forgiveness that overcomes vengeance. They think that integrating, it's this empathy you're talking about, integrating the Muslim religion
Right.
is being equal to Old Testament, New Testament is insane. But
It's-
they want to be good to the Muslim people, right?
because they think that is the hand that's going to change their thinking, but they don't understand that Muslims have a different agenda, a different way of thinking about how things go. The Muslim rule, the Islam rule, is to immigrate, populate, and then dominate
There you go.
areas. This is how they've gone, and they've submitted and subjugated populations since
Forever.
700.
And Blessed Mother says in the mystical city, and the only time she breaks away, we've talked about this, is that Muhammad was handpicked by Lucifer for the destruction of Judeo and the Christians.
Mhm.
Now, she's warning the world that these people are being duped. And
Yeah,
that-
Muslims are the first victims of Islam.
What do you mean by saying that?
Well, Islam, the people who run Islam, the power people, the elites, they don't care about the Muslims. It's just another, person in their army. So the people they want to disinherit. The Muslims want to say, well, that's Islam. Well, what do you follow? What teachings? Well, we follow the Islamic faith, but we're not Islamists. Well, it's like saying, well, I'm Catholic, but I'm not a Christian. Okay, or I'm this, but I'm not that. I'm a rectangle. I'm not a square. But all squares are rectangles. So where do we start saying, well, you are, you aren't, and what are you thinking? What are your teachings? What are you going to follow? What's going to happen if a decision has to be made? Which way are you going to go?
So you're saying the people are dupes.
Right. They've been duped, and they've been
pushed
into a power struggle, much like I think a lot of Christians have been done, and a lot of Catholics have been told to follow along with this open immigration type of thing, this policy that the Vatican wants to have no borders.
Yeah.
And this is all started. We'll talk about how these things are all kind of connected and how we've had warnings about this, and no one did anything, 50 years ago, 30 years ago, 10 years ago,
Yeah.
and here's where we're at. And you have to stand up to these things. But, this huge migration, if they want to call it, that happened through Europe and then into the United States over the last 10 years was by design. And this all started was basically really came to meaning with when Obama was elected in 2008. And we'll talk about some of these things. And it even goes back even further than that with a book that was put out by a Russian intellectual by the name of Alexander Dugin. And I talked about that in the last episode. And Dugin was one of the keynote speakers at the SPIFE conference over in Russia over the last 10 days. And that's the communist version of Davos, where the communist world leaders come together to talk about what are they going to do next and where's communism going, what are we focusing on. And Alexander Dugin was one of the key speakers, and Candace Owens from the United States actually was one of the speakers there.
Yeah.
And so whether she was being used or she was being part of it, I don't know. She might have been a victim of it as well. She might be just a little bit ignorant about where this is all headed. And because she's a younger woman, she may not have all the history to get the wisdom to know what's going on with these things.
All of it, right.
So, let's talk a little bit about. Let's go back to like Khrushchev. Okay, in the 50s, and he said, that he'll take over the West without firing a shot. They said what their plan was, and Alexander Dugin in 1997, the Russian, he said that communism would join with Islam to take over the West because they typified and idealized Western civilization as being the actual Antichrist. And you talk about the Antichrist being an individual, they're trying to portray the Antichrist as being a whole idea of Western civilization, that it's all the Antichrist, and that the Antichrist has already been here and left this, and they need to defeat Western civilization.
That's interesting.
And so it's a different perception. And the one thing you have to do in dealing with these things and with this empathy problem is you have to understand what your motivation is, but also what the other motivation is. That you can't think that they believe as you do, and they're going to have the same hierarchical values as you do, because they're looking at things differently in a different subset. We value life and its existence and living out a full life. They don't care. They think that basically being martyred is a virtue that's greater than anything. And so they value that more than anything, but not for themselves, but for you. Because the leaders aren't going to sit there and say, I'll go be a martyr. They say, you go be a martyr.
Yeah,
but this is what this is why the Muslims are the first victims.
They were
of
saying
Islam.
that they would put somebody strapped in all kinds of explosives and stuff, and the guy that's going to explode them has the thing, and then they put him in the car and they weld the door shut so the guy can't get out of the car. Yeah, we're going to explode you, not me. But you're talking about a union between communism that doesn't believe God exists,
right,
and you're talking about Islam that has distorted who God is and also orchestrated by Lucifer. So you got Lucifer, pulling the strings on both the communists and the at least the people in control of the powers, the levers of power in the Muslim religion. Now, within that context, you also got the Catholic Church that carries the positive faith. It's distorted it way beyond. We're probably worse than them because we've been given the Holy Eucharist. We've been given the faith. We've been given the positive faith. We've been given all of these beautiful graces and gifts, and we're acting like barbarians. Mm-hmm. So we're probably worse than them. This is where we're at. I mean, we talk about the distortions that are going on, but, here's an explanation: distortion of empathy.
Well, it became, they used it as a weapon against you by making you feel that you need to do this. They wanted to make everyone into these giving trees at the cost of themselves.
Yeah.